YouTube, this is Jeff from GarageBench. It's been a while since I've done a recording, but I thought I would share a video with you guys of one of my latest projects, Spy Hunter main cabinet. I did look on YouTube for several months trying to find one like this, but couldn't find anything to emulate, so I had to come up with this on my own. Got to go into demonstration explaining how the controls work. We'll go inside the cabinet and see how that works, and then we'll have a little gameplay after that.
Okay, so what makes the Spy Hunter so difficult to emulate is of course the controls. This is one of the most elaborate, fancy control systems of any arcade game. It includes the steering wheel with 4 unique buttons on there, and 5 if you include the weapons van that is normally in the center of the steering wheel. Then you've got the shifter, and of course you've got the throttle pedal down below. I used to own an original cabinet, so I'm very familiar with how it plays, and I wanted to emulate that as closely as possible. I tried to make the graphics, of course, look as much like the real thing as possible. I just ordered those on the web this time, and got the side panels and the backlit marquee. So I'm going to show you inside the cabinet how to get that steering wheel to work. This is actually a steering wheel off a Spy Hunter 2. Originally was going to make one just like the original and do molds and everything, but this was so much easier, and the size is a little smaller, which was better for this cabinet size. So I'm going to open it up now and we'll talk about what's inside. Okay, so for the steering wheel, what we needed was a potentiometer to emulate the real thing. And a potentiometer is just a dial, but the challenge became, how do I activate that dial with the spinning joystick? So you can see I'm moving the joystick back and forth here, and I went ahead and went with this, and you can see the shaft. It's hollow on the inside, and it's mounted in what was an original Spy Hunter 2 shaft was mounted there. I had to drill out some extra holes and put some mounting bolts in there to keep it from moving. I also had to weld these wings on to keep it from going any further. The original one had a stopping bar that was built into the shaft, but that didn't work for this application. So, and at the end of this piece, I actually did this on a lathe. There's a little nipple on the end, and of course there's a lock screw inside of this thing. And I just was able to get these pieces on Amazon. You can see the lock screws here. And that drives this little gear, and it also has a lock screw and the potentiometer, which sits inside this little box. This is just a piece of square tubing, and I welded it onto there, which allowed me to make this work while the potentiometer spins basically the same time as the steering wheel. I did the same thing for the foot pedal, which is down in there. Hopefully you can see that. And as I work this pedal with the spring to pull it back into place, you can see the potentiometer's moving. And this pedal, again, I just bought it off of Amazon, and it was for a dune buggy application or whatever. You know, you could buy it for whatever project you're working on. And you can also see that I just have this on a PC running Windows, and you can see the hard drive in there and the power supply, etc. And then that's hooked up to run the potentiometer. It's hooked up to what's called a Bodner board, and you can see that down in there as well. It's that little board, and I haven't mounted it yet, but it's fine where it is. It's not touching anything. And that Bodner board lets me control these potentiometers. They're usually used in foot pedals and things like that. You can find those on the internet. And that was kind of key to making this whole thing work. I also have my switches hooked up to this board. And again, I haven't mounted this properly yet, but it's just a simple, inexpensive board that allows all the buttons to function on the steering wheel. And then for my weapons van and start button, I just used these red square buttons up here that were part of the original cabinet. So I had to get creative in how you use it. But again, as I was saying, that's one of the challenges of emulating a Spy Hunter, is all the different unique buttons. But that was part of the challenge, part of the fun. And the last thing I did is I found this on Amazon, which is a fire missiles button. And I used that to start the PC in the machine. The last piece that was complicated, of course, is the shifter. I've built other shifters in the past, the 4-way ones, and the challenging part of this is you have to get it to lock into place, either in the up position or the down position. And you see I have a switch here, and also the settings inside the config file of the main game lets you set this up so that when it's being pressed, it's on or off. Otherwise, you press it and it shifts it to on, and you press it again and it shifts it to off. But this way it's either on or off, being in the up or down position. But again, that lock key is the challenging part of this. And so I had to build this little box, and you can see that little key moving in and out, which holds the steel bar into place. And that steel bar is nothing more than a 1/2-inch bolt that's fairly long, and going through that square box, which I have springs on here to get that key lock into place. It's greased up so it moves nice and smoothly. And then on the front here, I have a neighbor who has a lathe, and he made that nice ball for me. I had to bend this so that when you're steering and you're in high gear, your hand doesn't hit into that. It did originally, so I took it back apart and bent it so that wouldn't happen. But it feels really good now. And that's kind of those key features that make Spy Hunter possible. Only other way I've ever been able to play this, even semi-accurately, is with a flight stick. So if you have a good flight stick, you can play Spy Hunter MAME, and it plays pretty well. But with this, I'm able to play it as well as I ever did with the original arcade machine. Last thing that's not really part of the controls, but lets me control the MAME machine without having a big keyboard hanging out, which is always a problem with MAME, is this tiny little keyboard. So when I turn that on, I can move this little mouse around and launch the software. I have it set up a little batch process here so that all I have to do is click that little Spy Hunter twice and it goes. That DI view is part of that Bodner board, and it lets me see how the potentiometers are all functioning, which is kind of nice, and I can set their strength there as well. But this is really nice. I can just set it right here, and when I'm ready to start the game, I can move the mouse up there and double click it with this little mouse right button right there. That lets me start the game up. And anyway, this has been a really fun project. Very challenging to get it to this point. Challenging more in time than anything else, and it was fun, and it plays really fun too. So it was a fun project. Overall, it turned out really nice, and it's a fun cabinet to play.
Well, here I am playing it one-handed, holding the phone. It's not easy, but it plays well. Into low. High. Look out, motorcycle. Crash. Notice that with this version, things do light up here, which is great. Feels like you're playing a real machine. And hope you enjoyed the show.